Hello and namaste. My name is Inga Patch and welcome to the series Social Business. Today I would like to talk to you about what the Type B social business is. If you want to know more about the typology I have developed, please watch my other video where I describe how did I come to this typology. A Type B social business is a business where the social program is totally integrated with the enterprise activities, so hence a social business which at its core serves a mission. In this case, the mission or the beneficiaries of this social business are inside the social business and are the employees of the organization, while the social business is interacting with a market and selling its goods and services there. Therefore, a social business of the type B normally acts in the sustainability levels of society or environment, so it is really concerned about unsustainable patterns in one of these two layers of sustainability. So, in such an employment-oriented social business, we can see that the employee is at the core of all activities. So first, you look after who is your employee, what target group are you interacting with, what are their special needs, and how can you involve them, and then you actually build around this target group. You build a business model which is viable and allows you for financial sustainability. And then, of course, suppliers, society, customers, as well as the environment is treated in a fair, sustainable manner. So what type of problems can actually Type B social business solve? On the one hand, it can employ people with disability or other reasons which would hamper them to get actually employed. So especially in Nepal or other countries where the inclusion rules have not been that strong. It is like, I know in Austria, for example, every business has per 50 employee, I think, have to hire a person with disability, but in many countries there is no such regulations. And a social business could, for example, focus on hiring someone in a wheelchair or someone who's blind or deaf. You can hire people who are hard to employ groups, so with a lower economic background or a lower educational background, I wanted to say, or who have otherwise been kind of, are not able to access the labor market. For example, also single mothers with children at home who are not able to go working in the regular working times. So social business will provide a possibility to maybe hire them. You could bring employment to that region, so if you think about a very rural area where there is barely any job to do, a social business could be defined by bringing employment to these areas. Or develop a workplace where you say work is just much more, not just a means to survive, but work is really dignity and empowerment. So if you're able to produce something where you say, okay, people are just so much more empowered or have so much more dignity at your place, let's say a community-supported agriculture farm, than a normal worker in an agriculture farm, that could also be something a social business of type B could solve. So work is a means to fulfill the fundamental human needs, not just subsistence. So some impulse questions, if you draft the social business of type B, or if you're already operating something which is considered type B social business, could be as follows. So does the organization have an employee-oriented structure? This means are the working times, the arrangements, the workplaces, are they looking after what is the need of the employees? So how do the employees handle these things? Is there enough safety? Is there training? Can people like grow in the organization because they're able to enhance their capacities? Another question which can or should be asked is saying, is the payment perceived as fair and does it ensure a good life? I interestingly have come across several applications in Nepal who were always very proud that they would create employment for 50, 60 people, but eventually whom they would have hired would have been some day laborers who for 5, 6 days in a year would have got work, and then there was barely 2 or 3 people who would get a full year job actually. So it needs to be perceived as fair from everyone, but also it needs to ensure a good life. So you don't want to create working poor from a social business which is focused on employment. Is income distributed fairly among all? So the common good metrics from which I derive these questions logically, as well as the ethical question on how much more productive can maybe an academic person be rather than an untrained person, is suggesting that there is a maximum difference between the maximum salary and the minimum salary a person earns in a company, like given the same working time, of course. And depending on a bit on the organization size, they suggest that this is something between 1 to 2, 1 to 3, or maybe maximum 1 to 10, which can be justifiable. I mean, of course, it's an ethical question. So I would say there is like no right or wrong if the ratio is between 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. But at a certain stage in time, if you really claim to be there for all the employees, you should think if like a really high gap between the highest and the lowest pay is really justifiable, saying that you're mission oriented to provide employment to those people. Is work time distributed fairly among all? And if we look into current studies which assume that by 2050, 40, 50, 60% of our jobs will be done by robots, we will have a very different work like over here. So is it fair to say some people work like 60, 70 hours in a week and are totally overworked, while others would like to go and work and don't have a job? So also here, the common good economy is suggesting that the societal target should be to reduce the overall working time for all. So say, okay, can we come down maybe from 38.5 hours, which we have currently, can we get down to 35 or 30? I think something which is already discussed in different sectors actually. And also as a social business, you can ask the question saying, am I able to maybe hire two people rather than one person for maybe 30 hours a week only, and or for 20 hours a week, both of them, and yeah, both of them have more leisure time where they are able to look after their family or their health or whatever might be the case. So this is another question which can be a guiding question for the behavior of type B social business. Um, do you encourage ecological behavior and a healthy lifestyle? So, are you offering any special arrangements when it comes to public transport or arriving on a cycle, for example? Which food are you offering in the canteen? Is there a possibility to have tea or any healthy in between snacks? Are there trainings on health topics or counseling on these topics available? So, this could be another question set which can be asked. Is democracy, participation, and transparency practiced among the teams? So, how open is your organizational structure? Is it a very top-down hierarchy where one is the boss and has all the saying and the rest are just obeying and fulfilling their work? Or is everyone having the feeling that they are empowered and part of the full organization? Is everyone having access to the numbers? Do they know what is the turnover? How empowered are they when it comes to make decision making and which strategy is it going? So this would be another set of guiding questions as a type B social business. I would say you should ask this type of questions. So what are the problems and limitations now of type B social business? So on the one hand, of course, this is not just for type B social businesses, but for all businesses nowadays, saying which product can you actually produce, especially given that you might have a hard to employ target group you want to work with, or you might be somewhere really, really remote where having access to raw material and all the distribution channels is not so easy. So can you compete with machine production? Are you able to produce with these limitations you have because you don't have maybe the optimal stuff or you don't have the optimal area you're in? Are you able to really compete with the market, or is there a market for the product you wanna? Is there a market which is willing to pay more for the sake of the good ethical feeling? Even though I have to immediately say that this normally does not really work very well. I mean, this works somehow, but it's better to actually have a product which is really competitive in the market and you not just rely on the good heart of your customers or your consumers to actually pay more just because it's ethical more the thing to do, because we know from so many products it just doesn't work. It's against the psychology of us people. If some people might get the fair trade banana, but other people would just enter and get the poison agriculture banana, which is offer two for the price at one. So it's better to be on the safe side and say you really have a business model where you can produce cheap enough or in a price which is competitive in the market. Another risky thing could be because you might plan to work with a target group which is probably not coming readily equipped for the job you have. So you have to make higher investment to make stuff productive, like initial training, or you have to have special equipment so that also people with a disability can follow the job. So well, this is having higher investment, which means a lower return on investment. So you have to also calculate this through, and this can also kind of be a challenge, especially in the beginning phases when you're a very small startup. So what are examples now for type B social business? And I have found 4 wonderful examples for you, which excite me every time again when I see them. So the first one is a Swiss organization called Job Factory. They actually engage with youth, which after they leave school, most of them finish like a higher secondary school. They try to get some kind of employment, but they don't really find. So they get them enrolled in some kind of program where they can test a few different types of works, all which are of apprenticeship. And if they like one of the work, be it like in the sales force or be it in an office or maybe something in handicraft, then they would make sure that they get them placed in an apprenticeship program for 3 years, which is a standard in the Swiss government or Swiss education system, and they will finally be placed in the labor market. And in the same time, while they are in their testing time, they would be employees in fashion stores, for example, and from this revenue they can actually fund this whole program that the young people are getting picked up and the extra effort it takes to work with them and to counsel them. Another very nice example from the US, from Oakland, I really, really loved when I saw this video first time, is called Planting Justice. So this organization is actually having a permaculture garden and they're doing a nursery for small permaculture and organic plants. And they particularly work with former prisoners, and they help them to get a training as certified permaculture guides, as well as they involve them in their work, and they run their farm with these former prisoners, and in that way they help them re-enter the society. So for me also a very, very beautiful example of a type B social business. Another one, which is defined, I think, for another reason as type B social business, is the Mondragon Corporation, which is originated from the Basque area in Spain, and which was founded in the 1960s by a local padre, so by a priest who was trying to foster solidarity among his community. And the basic idea is that Mondragon is fully employee owned, as well fully employee run, so to say. So Mondragon Corporation is like not one single organization, but they have several different factories and producers, such as electronic producers, also a bank. They have all of them under one umbrella, and then each of these organizations, let's say the electronic producer, is made up of I think altogether there are 10,000 employees spread all over the network of Mondragon, and then every organization inside is organized. First of all, every employee has a share, and with the profit of every year's work is equally distributed on the share of every employee. And also things such as salary or decisions on who are the managing directors are taken in a base democratic manner. So this means they have their annual assembly, and things would be decided together with the staff. And it really, really works. So they're working since the 1960s, 1970s like this. And this is a very successful, very interesting example on how really base democracy can work very, very well with high-end quality, with good products, and with a fair payment for literally everyone involved. Well, another example of employing someone who is very hard to employ is an organization from Nepal I know. It's called Seeing Hands, and they employ blind people to give massage to, well, mainly tourists, I would say. But this is a very good possibility for blind people to also get a job. And finally, as I end every of my presentations with an example as a restaurant, so that you can have some comparison of a social business which does the same business but which has a very different type of social impact, is Dialogue in the Dark, which is a restaurant also run by blind. And if you enter there as an audience or as a customer, as a client, then you will also sit in the dark and you will have the experience. How is it if you have your dinner and you don't see anything? Well, I hope to have given you some inspiration with all these social businesses, which are bringing so much good in the world. If you want to know more, please visit my website, monoon.eu, or like